This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, this is Gary Graham, Ambassadors of All in Star Trek. You're listening to Warp 5.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, your dedicated Star Trek Enterprise podcast here on Trek FM. I am but one of the hosts on this lovely show, and with me tonight, as he almost always is, my good friend Patrick. Patrick, how the heck are you?
I'm all right. As far as the list is concerned, I'm pretty good. So I said the same thing a couple weeks ago on The Edge, because I recorded Edge yesterday, and these are going to be weeks apart. But yeah, I'm fine. I like podcasting, so I'm here. We get to talk about, well, not my favorite episode of all time, but hey, it'll be fun. How are you?
I am fine for all intents and purposes of this podcast. It's been a difficult day, and that's fine. That's fine. It's just
Bottoms up.
fine. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, I can't do that because I still got to go grocery shopping after this, and never go grocery shopping when you're buzzed. It's very annoying.
No, that's a bad idea.
Everyone else.
That or hungry. Terrible idea.
Oh, I can't go when I'm hungry because I'm hypoglycemic and I faint in the middle of it. So
Oh, that stinks.
I have to bring snacks, and they get mad at me for bringing food in. So I never go when I'm hungry.
No
Okay,
outside
enough.
food?
Yes, no outside food in Target. So, I don't think they actually have that rule. It's like, how can you prove I didn't get this at Starbucks? It's a Big Mac. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
It's a very special Starbucks.
Oh, I'm going over all of the possibilities of a McDonald's-Starbucks merger in my mind now.
All right. So, I think this might be a new record for Off the Rails, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We've somehow started talking about a McDonald's Starbucks merger at a Target near you.
Yeah, it's like take that out of Walmart's hands. They're not working it to the best of their abilities. Come on. Starbucks can do you much better. Anyway, I'm just going to stop. Okay, so we do have some comments on our last released episode, well, a couple episodes ago, which is Warp 5 number 180, which is when we did our Enterprise recast. And we have a couple of comments about comparing and contrasting some of the other series episodes with episodes from Enterprise, and our friend Patrick Carlin said another one for the compare and contrast list would be Doctor's Orders and 1 from Voyager. And then Wes Huntington said, or E2 with Deep Space Nine's Children of Time, and that one actually is already on the list. Chris Trabuzio had to jump in with, he says, my picks for Porthos are Benji and Lassie. That's adorable. My picks for Elder to Paul are Betty White or B. Arthur. Betty White all the way, because B. Arthur sadly is no longer with us. And then, of course, Chris Trabuzio says, "You want me a helmsman? You want me as a helmsman? Okay, if you come up here and show me where the throttle is on this thing, name the movie where the quote comes from, no cheating." I knew what it was from, but I couldn't quite grasp it. But it's Iron Eagle, 1986.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Which I actually liked better than Top Gun because there was more flying! More planes! And Nicholas Anastasio, friend of the show, Nicholas Anastasio says, "I love recast episodes, Brandi and Patrick. Always a fun game. Thanks for the Enterprise edition. See my list below. I decided to play along and went big. I came at it from a different angle, imagining an A-list cast for a tentpole studio-made Enterprise movie launch. I cast older actors because the story takes place 20 years after the events of These Are the Voyages. Yes, I got so into it, I fleshed, in my mind, a whole plot outline supporting the recast idea. And yes, of course, Trip is in the film. Here you go, in the same order you went. John Boyega as Lieutenant Commander Travis Mayweather, Maggie Q as Lieutenant Commander Hoshi Sato, Hugh Jackman as Commander Malcolm Reed, Melissa McCarthy as Dr. Phlox, the story takes into account Phlox's gender reassignment, Woody Harrelson as Captain of Engineering Trip Tucker, Kate Blanchett as Commander T'Pol, and George Clooney as Commodore Jonathan Archer.
That's pretty cool. That he even put... they even built a whole story around their universe for this.
Yes. Now that is going the extra mile. Good stuff. All right, then. So, I'm sure there are other things that we could discuss from the Babel Conference at this time, but I'm going to save those for another podcast, because sometimes the pickings are lean and sometimes there's too many to fit into one episode.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, so we'll save some more for next time. And let's get right down to it. This week we are going to do our first compare and contrast. And what did you choose, Patrick? Because you were the one who decided this.
So I'd like to give credit where credit's due. We did get this idea from Brandon Housen. He sent in an email, and we liked this idea of comparing interesting episodes. And we picked Identity Crisis and Extinction, a.k.a. Fraggle Rock. Mostly because he actually called it Fraggle Rock.
Yes. Which is lovely. So, yeah. So you had to watch Extinction again. Did you just pick this first so you could get it out of the way?
Ding, ding, ding.
See, I know you.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Do it quick.
Yeah. So there we go. So we sat through both of those episodes again.
To be honest, I actually did want to watch Identity Crisis again, too.
Yeah.
So I don't... We'll get into it, but I don't hate that episode like I do Fraggle Rock.
Yeah.
But, so at least I knew I was going to get one episode I enjoyed out of this deal, and I watched it significantly more than the one I don't like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I, of course, have memories of Identity Crisis. I don't remember particularly liking it, and so when I went into it the second time, watching it in a mindset of, well, let's see how this stacks up with Extinction. And there were a lot of things that I don't know if I wasn't experienced enough to really make the connections, but there were a lot of things that I picked up this time that I never had in any previous viewings of this episode. So,
yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. Like, you don't, maybe you don't catch it because you're not looking for it, and there you are, and it's a little more nuanced or whatever. But, like, even while we were just talking about Discovery, there was a lot of TNG references in Episode 4 of Discovery that I didn't catch because I haven't watched TNG in a while.
Yeah.
But if I had watched it more recently, I would have caught them a little quicker.
Yeah, there were, it's been probably, 5 or 6 years since I've done a full TNG rewatch, which is not to say I haven't watched selected episodes, but I haven't done a full rewatch in about 6 years.
Yeah, so, my mindset isn't, let me see what's from TNG in here. So, But if I was in the middle of a rewatch, I'd probably catch more things like that. And I don't think I ever watched Extinction and was going through Enterprise, TNG at the same time, that I would have caught on.
Right.
That I would have thought about these two episodes together in this way. Even though once you watch them together, it's so obvious, it hurts.
Yeah. There are some really strong similarities, and then there are some really big differences.
Yes.
So, let's see. I have copious notes on things to remind me what happened in the episodes. I know I could have just gone on Memory Alpha, but I had to put my own spin on it and take notes throughout the whole thing. Here are some things about... Let's start with Identity Crisis. So, in this episode, basically, Geordi and a here to this point, formerly unseen commanding officer from another mission, Commander Lighton, they were on this away mission on this planet, and some weird things started happening, and now people who were on that away mission are stealing shuttles and doing everything they can to get back to that planet. And Commander Lighton comes on board the Enterprise and explains what's going on, and they need to try and stop this latest attempt to get back to that planet, find out what they can, etc. And so we get a little bit of history between Geordi and Commander Lighton, but it's kind of tense because they don't know what's going on and they're kind of worried, and they're like the last two people that haven't gone nutso, apparently. So, but they got to get back to the planet. When they get there, one of the crewmen who has stolen a shuttle, basically, the shuttle, they don't have the right trajectory to enter the atmosphere, and they end up destroying themselves in the atmosphere of the planet.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
I've watched this episode like 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they crash? Why do they blow up and everyone else is able to make it down okay?
Well,
is it just that they stink at piloting? Is that like what I'm supposed to believe?
Well, the thing is that they were approaching the planet too fast, and knowing what I know from, I mean, I didn't go to space camp or anything like that, but when you're entering an atmosphere, you can't just go straight in. You have to...
Oh, right, you have to kind of use the curvature and all that other...
Yeah, you have to
stuff.
find a specific window, you have to be at a certain speed, at a certain pitch, etc. And this shuttle was just basically heading at full speed and not adjusting their course whatsoever or their speed, therefore basically crashes into the atmosphere.
Okay, there was no other... Because I watched it, I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. Apparently, everyone else made it, but this guy, for some reason, can't. So I kind of just assumed that it was like the point of the change where he's kind of out of it.
Yeah, and that's what I would assume as well, that he's to the point where he doesn't remember really who he is. And
right, but not fully transformed yet and able to function.
Yeah.
You know, so, but...
So basically had no idea how to slow the shuttle down or initiate a proper landing on the planet.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
But because, to be fair, he's the last person that's trying to make it to this planet, which means they didn't necessarily go... You know, they didn't necessarily all start to transform at the same time, although it would have made more sense if they did. But we'll just let that be. It's just like...
Well, no, so I thought that at first, too. I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought that at first, too. But if you and I are in a room with someone who has a cold, right, we might not necessarily get a cold at the same time.
This is true. This is true, because...
Now, this isn't quite like a cold. I mean, that's more like the other episode that shall not be named. But...
Yeah.
But it kind of seems like this is transmitted the same way like a virus is. Yeah,
it's basically when Susanna starts showing symptoms, she is, they go to sick bay, and Dr. Crusher says she's having a histamine response.
I love that line too.
So that means she's having a response to some sort of trigger.
Yeah,
and
almost like allergies on the planet.
Yeah. And she, it's when Susanna, because it's easier to say than Lighton, or I'll just call her Suze. When Sue starts having like extreme sensitivity to light and her body is transforming, she's like covered in blue veins and her eyes are weird. And
Now she's from the mirror universe.
Yeah, and now, Crusher tries to stabilize her immune system with T cells, which is actually a scientific thing. T cells are part of the immune system. They're a subcategory of white corpuscles that fight infections and viruses, and so it would make every sense for what Crusher thought was going on for her to try to stabilize her immune system with T cells.
Yeah, I mean, she even says, that can't be. I already stabilized them.
Yeah.
And clearly that's not exactly what's going on here. But, yeah, so I kind of derailed you on your thought there. But, no, I think it makes sense because not everyone reacted the same way to this foreign DNA strand, which is really what it was that was in their brain.
Yeah. So that's that makes sense because I had that thought, and then now you've explained it in the way that you have, and it makes more sense to me. Which means that Geordi is the superhuman of this particular away team because he's the last one to go.
He takes lots of vitamin C, and he feels good all the time.
Yep. Way to go, Geordi.
Lots of superfoods, pomegranate, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Because that stuff totally works. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that natural remedies aren't a good thing. I'm just saying that you can't completely depend on them for everything that happens to your body. So, as Star Trek has shown us.
Very true.
Technology is not a bad thing. So long story short, we've got one person who's transforming on the way, but we never see that. Then we have Suze going through this transformation, and we get to see that in all its stages of glory. And then Geordi, while he's trying to figure out what happened on this planet by using the holodeck. Yay! An interesting way of using the holodeck that isn't just recreating some book or having sex. I mean, sorry. No, we never do that on the holodeck.
We don't show people.
No, we don't show people that. Ugh. Anyway, but that's what they're mostly using it for. Come on.
I don't know if they would on the Enterprise. I mean, they definitely did in DS9.
Oh, absolutely. Those holosuites must have been nasty.
but on the Enterprise, I'd kind of be worried about who's looking at those logs. Just my personal take on that.
Well, it seems to me like what happens in the holodeck stays on the holodeck, and that should be private information, not available to any Tom, Dick, or Harry that comes by. But, you know.
In theory. So what did you think of this episode overall? Now that you gave a fairly good rundown of it.
You know, it's not bad. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad. Basically, you know, it kind of stumbles towards the end. It's like, oh, you're gonna talk Geordi down from being this other new alien. Okay. That's
okay.
Weird. It's like
I kind of see now. I had a different reaction. Maybe it's because I was watching this with Extinction, and they're two similar episodes but done very differently.
Yes,
I like this episode, and I like the ending. I actually enjoy it. One of the things I like about it is, it shows that Geordi's still there. He even references the line where she's like, "Well, you know, you weren't even you, but I could talk to you." He's like, "Well, and I still trusted you." Something along the lines of, you know, the core me still trusted you is basically what he's getting at. That just because I had changed, you know, not all of Geordi was actually gone.
Right.
And I kind of enjoyed that part of the story.
Yeah, but if it's not like that would have worked had they been, I don't know, half an hour later, and all of a sudden now he's all alien.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think that might be what they were going for. Maybe not, but whatever.
No,
Look.
I know, but they flat out say, you know, that the rest of them are too far gone, that they can't.
They do. That's
they can't
true.
recover them. So.
That is true.
And you know, it's honest. It's okay. I'm not really complaining, but it's just kind of weird. So I thought, okay, so we know how to actually help Geordi because we helped Lighten, and the thing is, Geordi's already escaped down to the planet, so I guess it makes a kind of weird logic that the person who had come back from that abyss could explain to Geordi, look, I know what you're feeling. I know you're still in there somewhere. Come on back now, you hear?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, look, if anyone else gave that speech, it would be ridiculous.
That's true.
So I do like that. You know what? One thing I do like about this is it expands the universe a little bit, because now you do see another crew from another ship. Even though one of the crew members is Geordi, we're seeing that they didn't all always end up, they weren't always on the Enterprise.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
I really loved how they did the holodeck. That was really masterfully done.
yeah, I mean, it really didn't have to be done to figure out this whole problem. But yes, it was done well.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but they, he had to figure out that there was something else down there, there's someone else down there. And it was a very interesting way of doing it. And just, because the technology is not like what it is now. And so having people be in the same scene, the same, one person playing two parts in the same scene can not always be convincing, but this was absolutely convincing for me.
Yeah, no, it was very, very well done. It was great film techniques.
Yeah.
And then just even the use of the technology, like you said, we finally see the holodeck used for something like intelligent, not just playing a part in a book. Mm-hmm. And it's not just a recreation area at this point. It's actually being used for something. But, I mean, I wish they just would have somehow tied that in a little bit better to them figuring out the answer.
Yeah, I agree. Also, just one thing that I found weird was when they first get back to the planet and beam down and there are no life signs, and Geordi points out that there are no human life signs. And then Riker tries to contact Commander Lighton, but he says, Riker to Susanna, like, I'm sorry, do you know her well enough to just start calling her by her first name while you're on duty? That's weird to me.
Yeah. They do that a few times in different iterations of Star Trek. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It was just odd to me, because it's not like they had a history. Now, if Geordi had done that, Geordi and Susanna have a history, so I would not have found that weird. But Riker didn't have any history with her as far as I knew.
Yeah, it's weird.
Unless, Riker.
The maneuver. The maneuver.
I like to say it, the maneuver.
But you never know. Hey, you never know. Because now we see Geordi had this relationship with a whole other crew we didn't know about, so you never know.
I know, but at least they established that there's history there. I don't
What
even...
happens off screen stays off screen.
I do not want to see it. I don't. I really, really, really don't. I do like Dr. Crusher having a lot to do in this episode with trying to figure out, well, a lot for, then. Right now it would be like, yeah, that's still not enough to do, but we're kinder to our women now as far as giving them things to do that aren't just sitting there looking pretty. So, character development.
Well, I like anything that has to do with Beverly Crusher, so.
Well, of course. And I just really enjoy seeing her figure this thing out, where she figures out that this parasite is causing the transformation. It's not necessarily a parasite, it's actually their way of reproducing, but it's spreading genetic instructions and using their immune system to transform the host's DNA to match its own.
Yeah, so that was interesting, because the explanation on that was kind of like, I don't know, it was like fumbled for me. It's like, oh, this parasite's doing it. But it's not acting like a normal parasite. It's in reverse. Okay, so not a parasite.
Yeah,
use that word.
She calls it a parasite at first, but that's the thing. She doesn't know everything about it until Susanna comes out of it, and she's like, oh, no, this is their way of reproducing. Because now she has other information that Beverly didn't have, she wasn't privy to, I guess is the word to say.
Like you said, as long as Beverly has some screen time and it's being used for good causes, I enjoy it. I like I said, overall I enjoyed the episode, so
yeah,
I liked it. I like we'll get into why I like this and not the other one after we talk about the other one. So let's talk about Fraggle Rock.
Okay, let's talk about it. So,
you want to give a quick rundown of that episode? Okay. They go to a planet, they turn into aliens, nobody cares, they leave the planet?
There's Chekhov's peach in there, yeah.
Okay, I think we can do a little bit better than that.
All right, well, it starts out with us seeing somebody running through the forest and people in environmental suits are chasing this person. They finally catch up to this person, and it is inferred that they burn this person alive. They, of course, don't show that on screen because that's too expensive. So... Well, it is. You have to get special stuntmen for that stuff. It's not easy. And then we're back on the Enterprise, and there's the Chekhov's peach, and in the middle of their Vulcan nerve pressure techniques session, T'Pol gets called to the bridge, and Archer has found a planet where the Xindi have visited very recently. And so, he's found another species of Xindi referred to in this information that they picked up earlier. Anyway, long story short, they go to the planet. They go down to the planet. What they find is not a Xindi, and they don't find any Xindi life signs there. But there's a shuttle there. And then they all start getting weird, except for T'Pol doesn't go completely weird, just slightly weird.
Well, magic Vulcan blood.
Yes, magic Vulcan blood, except when it's Trillium D. And then
right, well, magic Vulcan blood, bad time. No.
So yeah, they basically in this case, it is an engineered virus that instead of reproducing... It is for reproducing, really, because it basically overwrites the genetic structure of whatever life form it encounters and makes it, this particular species, because they lost the ability to reproduce. And this species is called the Lokek, by the way, and they are all implanted with this need to find Urquhart, which is their major city. And unfortunately, they didn't really have any foresight about how to deactivate the virus in the case of their imminent demise. And that virus is still hanging out, even though the Lokek are, for all intents and purposes, gone. So
to be fair, though, and I do not like this episode, but to be fair to this episode, if I was that race, I wouldn't have a way to stop it either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother. Even in my demise, my race can come back if this virus survives. So I think that part makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't think they understood the way that outsiders might see said virus, and I'm certain that they didn't anticipate someone just deciding, oh well, we have to just kill all of these people off.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Because. Honestly, they killed off probably hundreds of thousands of people in their time.
You would assume, right? I mean,
yeah.
And the reason given is that anyone who goes to the planet and then subsequently leaves the planet will then infect anyone it runs into. So eventually it would wipe out the whole universe, turning everyone into Lokek.
Yeah, and
that's not a good thing.
I know that's not a good thing. However, they're all compelled to find Urquhart. Why would they leave the planet?
Well, there's problem number 2.
Yeah.
See, there's many problems. They also are described as a primal life form. Yet they engineered a disease that changes anyone's DNA into theirs?
Yeah, that's not primal. That's intelligent.
I'm sorry, but changing one's DNA sequence is not easy.
No, it's not.
And you don't just kind of like throw it out there and like all of a sudden cats are Lokets, and like it doesn't work that way. Like even if you learn how to change the sequence of a human's DNA, you can't just do that to a cat or a dog, let alone some being from another planet.
Well, it's interesting though because it didn't seem to transform any wildlife, so they must have had a particular, strain of DNA in this that would only seek out like humanoid species.
See, they're just way too smart to be primal.
Yeah, that is for sure. So that is a glaring inconsistency. What a surprise.
Yeah.
Poor LeVar Burton. He did his best with what he had.
Oh, he's heavily involved in both these episodes, too. Look at that.
Yeah, how about
I
that?
didn't even think of that. He is.
Yes, he is.
No, look, he did his best, and the actors did their best not looking terrible while looking terrible. But it's just a poorly thought-out plan.
It is. It is a poorly
Overall.
thought-out plan. I do like how different... I mean, honestly, the acting for Malcolm and Hoshi and Archer, they do seem very alien. Very not human anymore.
Yeah, they do a great job of
Yeah.
being the low-tech. I just don't think we ever needed to see it. So...
No, it didn't need to be committed to film, but there we are. We got it anyway.
So, and then you have we'll bring it up because we were talking before we came on to record, but then you have Hoshi with the little like teenage girl look, with the hand, the sass look. I don't know. It was,
Yeah, it was just a really weird way of standing, but it was supposed to be unlike Hoshi.
it makes sense. It's just we didn't need to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yay, they give us a Hoshi episode. Oh, it's this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, the thing they're up against in this episode is another race who wants to exterminate them before Phlox can find a cure. And Phlox, of course, just needs a little time. And because they get Malcolm back up to the Enterprise, and that's what he needs. He needs someone to study. He needs someone to take samples from, to take blood from, all of these things, so that he can figure this thing out. And they just about die. They just about get destroyed before Phlox is able to synthesize an antivirus. And it's pretty funny when they're kind of caught with their jaws down, like, there's an antivirus. Wow. That makes us look so bad. So bad. Guys, do you know what this means? This makes us look really bad. You kind of see that in his eyes. It's just like, oh, no. Oh, man. Oh, no. We suck.
We've been doing this for like a couple 100 years, and these guys been here for like a week at most. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
They didn't even know this area of the universe existed a month ago.
Yeah. And they just waltz right in and they create an antivirus. Oh, we suck, man. We suck. We're bloodthirsty bastards is what we are.
I really had expected that to pay off at some point somewhere in season 3.
Right.
That guy exists, and then we just never see him again.
Which is kind of a bummer.
That or he was going to be Thor's gatekeeper. One or the other was going to have to happen.
Right? It's one of those things, though, where I'm just like, so why wasn't there any kind of warning beacon for this planet? I mean, come
because
on.
the real reason is we just really have a lot of propane and want to use our flamethrowers.
Yeah, they're bloodthirsty bastards, like I said. Yeah. They just wanted to kill people. They enjoy killing people, so they just wait for people to set down on the planet. And they're like, ooh, hunting party, let's go.
Yeah, because amazingly, the Enterprise leaves a beacon.
Yeah.
Do not come here.
And
I guess from now on, my head they blew the beacon up immediately upon them. They saw the tail lights leave. And once they were out of sight, poof.
They're like, okay, nobody tell that there's an antivirus, okay?
We're all going to act like that doesn't exist, all right? On 3. Break.
Yep. And then with the planet in Identity Crisis as well, they left a beacon, did they not?
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It makes perfect sense for that to happen.
Yeah. So, and now with Identity Crisis, I understand why there was no beacon at that planet before, because no one ever knew what had happened. Until,
Right, no one was coming there
Yeah.
to just kill things that were on the planet. The race actually still existed.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you couldn't see them.
Yes, because they're only visible in ultraviolet light.
Yes,
And
which is very interesting.
It seems to me like it took way too long to get that emitter reconfigured to emit UV. It's just kind of like, really?
And it doesn't hurt their eyes. It was a little weird.
It shouldn't take more than like 10 seconds for data. Come on. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
That's just...
But yeah, that took an awful... like, he forgot. Like, he was like, this button or that? Man, if I could only remember... I had a long night last night. What do I hit next? Like...
Data, you gotta stop drinking, man. You gotta stop drinking.
So, okay, so the obvious similarities here, right, are it's a quote-unquote virus that is used for reproduction, right? So that's the obvious differences. Now, what is it about Extinction that makes me not like it, but Identity Crisis that makes me like it, I can tell you quickly, is the point of view of most of the episode. Extinction is on the planet with them changing, right?
Right.
And it focuses on the changing more than the solving. Yes, there's parts back on the ship trying to figure it out and everything, and really more of that part of that episode is really looking at Trip being the commander at the moment, right?
Yes.
Trying to figure out, how do I tell them, Archer's not here, or how do I keep them from getting to the planet and killing my people? Whereas in Identity Crisis, it's more the investigation into what's going on. That's what I enjoy about that episode.
Yeah. Well, and I can understand kind of why they're different in that respect, because Enterprise, for all intents and purposes, I gotta stop saying that phrase. I think I've used that like 3 or 4 times during this podcast.
I'll cut one of them out.
Okay, I appreciate it. So Enterprise does happen earlier in Star Trek history, so
significantly earlier. So I can use that in my head canon to explain why they're less focused on the solving, and well, there are people trying to solve it, but the episode itself, I don't have a good explanation. Okay, I was trying to figure out where that was going.
I don't. I was trying to rationalize it, and this is one I can't, because...
Well, look, in all fairness, if they had written that episode where they spent most of the time on the ship trying to figure it out, everyone would be like, you just copied TNG.
Yep.
Instead, they were trying to copy TNG, and it's like the toner in the copier was out. You just didn't get enough detail.
Well, and with LeVar Burton there, he would probably be like, guys, that's the exact thing that we did in Identity Crisis.
I was like the main in that one.
Yeah, I know, because I was there.
Which might be why he was hired to unfortunately do this one.
LeVar, we love you. We love you, man. We do not blame you. We do not blame you for this.
Of course not. I mean, you did Reading Rainbow, and you can't do no wrong.
Yeah, I love these.
And I said that in such a way that I didn't watch Reading Rainbow, apparently. You can't do no wrong.
You can do no wrong.
Yes.
So.
Well, I was going to say you can't do anything wrong. And it got all messed up somewhere in the middle.
Right. That's okay. That's okay.
But
we're all friends here. And LeVar Burton would forgive you. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm glad.
He's a cool guy.
So
I don't know. I've never met him. I hope someday I get to. But
me too, actually. I've unfortunately never met him, and like I said, I've been watching him since I was a little kid. It's one of the big reasons why I got so heavily into TNG when it came out, was because he was on the show.
Yep.
So
yeah, that was a surprise for me when I first started watching, because I was 14, 13, going on 14 when I was 14. Fully 14.
When did TNG was 80?
87 when it started. It was in 87.
Right. Okay.
So I was either...
So I was still watching Reading Rainbow, LeVar Burton at that time.
Yeah. Well, and see, I had watched Reading Rainbow as a younger child, because it was Reading Rainbow, and I loved to read. And LeVar Burton. So when I see that first episode, and I said, what? Why aren't you on Reading Rainbow now? Are you not doing Reading Rainbow anymore, LeVar?
Yeah.
Have you betrayed me?
But it's in a book. Just take a look.
Reading Rainbow. Sorry.
It's sad. There's no show like it for my kids either, but
Yeah.
I did love that show. We're off the rails again, but
That's okay. These 2 episodes are off the rails.
they really are. They really are. So did you have any? Because you took way more notes than I did. Did you have any other like more nuanced similarities between those 2 episodes
Well, let's
than
see.
the big obvious one?
Let's see here. In this case, I
know nuance wasn't a big part of Extinction to begin with. But
No, but in both cases, it's the resolution is somewhat similar. The figuring out how to rewrite the DNA for what they are originally intended to be. It's a different way to approach it, but it's the same idea. Is trying to keep this thing from taking over completely, and it's going to get to the point where they will no longer be able to be transformed back. So there's that. But in this case, it's more about rewriting their DNA, which if this were Next Generation, they'd just run them through the transporter and filter it out in the pattern buffer.
Or it would have filtered itself out.
Yep, exactly.
So.
But we don't have that going for us. Except
Well, see,
there is transporter use when they come back down to get the rest of the crew. Trip uses the transporter.
So but it's interesting you bring that up because that's one of the things I thought of when they were when they finally give you where this virus has been hiding. I'm like, how come that wasn't just filtered out the very first time they came back?
Yeah, but it's hard to say because maybe it wasn't seen as a threat. Maybe since they have no knowledge of it in any computer, the computer didn't know that it was a threat. And so
I guess it's just
because it's not something that they'd ever come across before. It was a new life form. Same thing in this case for Enterprise. It was not something the Federation, actually it wasn't Federation yet, this was not something that Starfleet had ever come across. So they had no information to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes actually more sense in Enterprise than it does in TNG, because TNG should have the record of the Extinction event happening. I mean, they probably don't look it up, but, there'd be some knowledge of alien life forms taking over by making you them. But
yeah.
Plus, we've seen the Borg, right? I mean, that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, it is kind of what they do.
Not gene-wise, but that's kind of the same thing, right?
Well, it does rewrite some of their DNA because, you're given all of these appendages and robotic implants, etc. So I guess it's a different kind of virus, more outward.
Well, it's definitely a virus because they talk about the nanotechnology and everything involved in it, but it's just a little different the way it's done. But point is a life form taking over another life form as a means of reproduction should kind of be more well known by TNG than it is for Enterprise.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And in the case of Extinction, basically Phlox decides that he needs to be able to look at T'Pol's uncorrupted DNA so he can see where the changes are trying to happen and therefore synthesize an antivirus. And that's where Chekhov's peach comes in. So
right, because it's before she goes down and then when she comes back where it's being attacked.
Yeah, because that whole scene with him trying to get T'Pol to take a bite of the peach is just so awkward and so forced.
It really is. Like couldn't they have just written that he hands her a peach and she eats it?
Yeah.
So it didn't feel creepy?
Yeah, it was just didn't feel good. It didn't feel good.
Yeah, it's just weird. There was so many ways to do that without making Trip come off like a weirdo.
Yeah, it's a little bit creepy.
But and the resolution to both episodes is kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, neither race is actually wiped out at the end.
Right.
There is a chance that in Extinction that'll be it because they're going to destroy the last strand of the virus, right?
Yeah, but Archer decides that they aren't going to do that.
Right. Archer, decides no, it's sort of our duty to preserve life, even if it was doing what it was doing.
Well, and to be fair, they did have a civilization they did have buildings and a system of government, etc., which is, again, why would you call them primal? Because this,
Yeah, I don't.
in Archer's dream of Urquhart, that was a pretty nice city.
Yeah, it was sophisticated.
Yeah. It was not, a bunch of people living in caves with bear skins.
No, but ironically, the whole civilization was in a cave.
It was underground. That is not the same thing. Not the same thing. But it's a fair point.
But no, I get your point. They're not, like you said, they're not just in a cave. Like, the cave is not, the whole means of the cave is not just to get out of the rain and lightning. Yeah. They built a city underground.
Yeah. And I don't know what their source of light was, because there was light in there. So it was kind of
There was
weird.
tons of light. Like,
maybe they have
worst cave ever.
Well, they might have a skylight in the top.
Giant. It's like a dome.
Yep.
Like one of those retractable dome stadiums they got now.
Yep, that's what it was. And, the technology's been lost, so they don't know how to move that rock ceiling anymore. So
Yeah, it just stays open.
it's just stuck.
They need some WD-40 for the gears.
They really, really do. You'd think they'd have that on Enterprise. I mean, I don't think WD-40 is ever going to go out of favor.
Clearly, duct tape doesn't.
No, it sure doesn't. And
So-
you need a good lubricant. WD-40 is
Right.
good.
It's phenomenal. It's got to still be around.
Absolutely. Maybe they've made
Every door slides and moves, and they're all pocket doors.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
like any of them open like a door.
yeah. You got somebody oiling those every single day, because I have a pocket door at my
It's
office,
terrible.
and it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, the unsung heroes of Star Trek are the maintenance crew that actually walks around. Not the top high engineer guys working on the warp drive. No, it's the poor guys who got to lube all the pocket doors every day.
Mm-hmm. They got to do all the grunt work, like O'Brien on Deep
Yeah,
Space
change
Nine.
light bulbs, stuff like that.
Yeah. Those are the true heroes, because without those unsung, unseen heroes, things would not move as smoothly as we see them.
That's it. I'm asking Discovery. Next episode, I want to see someone changing a light bulb or fixing a lock or something.
Yeah, give us a Lower Decks episode of Discovery. I want to see it now.
Yep.
And I want to see Jet Reno in the middle of it.
Oh, phenomenal. Listen to episode 60 of The Edge, and I sing her praise for a good 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I was thrilled when I found out Tig Notaro was going to be on. So, yeah, I've been a fan of hers for many years.
Yeah, I don't know the actress herself, but man, she's phenomenal.
She is mostly famous for stand-up comedy. I would suggest checking her out on Netflix.
That makes sense.
She has at least one special on Netflix, and she's amazing. Had a battle with cancer and was very honest about it in her stand-up.
Ah.
So she's one amazing person. I really enjoy
I'll have to check that out.
And now, thanks for joining us for episode 183 of The Edge. The Edge, Earl Grey, and Warp 5 rolled into one.
All right. You're right. And we talked about DS9.
Yeah.
So we got
We
the orb in there.
had-
We even said Voyager in this episode. We've talked about everything but the Kelvin timeline.
And the animated
And
series.
TOS. You said Chekhov,
No.
so we got them all.
There we go.
Done. We knew we could get them all in here, guys. We did it. You thought this was an episode about Extinction and Identity Crisis. This was just a way to say all the Star Trek shows.
Yeah, we just wanted to see how many shows we could reference in one episode. And the answer is all of them. all of them.
All right, so I guess there's not much more to talk about these episodes, right? I mean, they're kind of similar. There's not actually many differences except for the point of view is the main difference. It's a big difference, but that's really the only. The outcomes and everything else are pretty much the same. I think it's safe to say that Extinction is a copy of Identity Crisis.
It is.
In many ways.
It is in many ways, except in the case of Identity Crisis, there was something that Crusher removed from Susanna, which started reversing the process and letting her go back to being her normal form of human.
Right. Oh, that's yeah. So her body actually fought back to be normal, which that's kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah. So once she removed that, what she thought was a parasite, she was able to stimulate the immune system to do the rest of the job itself. And there was no such thing to dig out of any of the crew members of Enterprise who had been affected or infected.
No, you just had to kill the virus.
Yeah, kill the virus and wait to get better, like you do with viruses.
Right, which is cool because they do. That is one thing though. They do kind of show that trailing a few episodes. They show like little marks left over from the incident and everything, which is kind of cool. Whereas with this episode of TNG, but the times are different when they're telling stories. So, yeah. But this is just a self-contained episode that doesn't have any bearing later.
Yeah.
In TNG,
where
this Extinction really has no bearing on the overall series, but we just get those little. Oh, yeah, my skin's still dry on my arm. Yeah, it's gonna be like that for a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, it had some continuity, and I appreciated that instead of everything just being reset back to normal, because we were in a different age where arc storytelling was becoming more and more popular and what people wanted to see rather than just, episodic stories. And right. you can do both, because Extinction is episodic, but it still has enough ties to the arc that you just go, oh, continuity. Yeah. And the whole reason that they go there is because they trailed a Xindi ship there. So they wouldn't have even gone there if the Xindi hadn't gone there. Thanks, Xindi.
Well, so I assume the Xindi died in the first scene now.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I'm assuming as well, is that it was a Xindi who had been transformed. So,
yeah.
Yeah, that was my assumption. Because it was very recently that they had been to that planet. So.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts on any of this?
Well, it was interesting watching these two episodes back to back, because it became very obvious very early on how remarkably similar they are, but done in two very different ways. Again, like you said, because of point of view. And how I'm more prone to actually, I don't know, watching someone uncover a mystery than I am to watching someone trying to deal with children. I mean, they are very petulant and childlike when they've been. It's T'Pol babysitting. That's what it feels like in Extinction. Is T'Pol is babysitting because she's the only one who has, her original identity still intact with only a few lesions and what have you. So yeah, it's babysitting time for T'Pol. Sorry, honey.
It sucks when they just drop them on you like that.
I know.
You didn't even know it was coming.
Yeah.
So my final thoughts are real simple. Extinction, 2 thumbs down. Identity Crisis, 1 thumb up. Everything is basically the same in the story, except, again, the point of view, and that's what makes all the difference. Had Extinction done this from a different point of view, it may have been a better version of the story, because in reality, they are 2 very, very similar stories, and it's just the way they were filmed and the way they were written, from whose point of view they were written, really, is the difference.
Agree, but LeVar Burton gets all the thumbs up all the time.
Yes.
Because it's LeVar Burton.
If I had 4 thumbs, he'd get 4.
Well, you could use big toes.
4 thumbs and toes up. He's a 10. I said a 10.
I love it. I love it. It's been fun talking about LeVar Burton today, but that's not the only thing we've been discussing around here, so here's a quick listen to some things you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Warp 5.
Well, and I feel like a side quest could be finding more spheres and gathering intelligence from each one. And each one has like a different way you have to get into them and a different thing you have to collect.
Right, or they're cloaked differently, or
each one is an individual.
Earl Grey.
Because like the DNA transformation, where's the DNA coming from that's being transformed?
It's like a replicator.
Yeah, and I think that again,
No.
the yeah, but I mean, again, the explanation that it's an advanced Genesis device kind of makes me buy it more.
Okay, yeah.
But it just felt a little weird. The DNA thing, it looks like hey, can somebody just throw some leaves on the bridge, you know? But I think it's a really cool concept. The snakes in the
torpedo.
Was it the torpedo? At that moment, I thought this is the Halloween 3 of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
To the journey!
That's a really good point, Suzanne. We need to clarify, because when we're talking about Chakotay and Seven, some of the best romantic scenes are not actually with Chakotay, they're with hologram Chakotay.
Yes. I would like to meet hologram Chakotay. He seems nice.
You want to date with holographic Chakotay, okay.
If I had a holodeck, I'd be programming that in right now.
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Saru finally realizes at some point he's seeing its language in ultraviolet light. Basically Morse code. I don't know why they don't say that wording.
Oh, you thought Morse code? Because I was thinking binary.
That makes sense too, but isn't binary kind of a version of Morse code? Because Morse code is a type of binary language. Because all it is beeps and not beeps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out all these shows and join the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link.
Now, as usual, Boomers, we want to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways to do that. The best place, of course, to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. If you have not been to the Babel Conference, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just be a joiner? Actually, that sounds really bad when I say it like that. Never mind. Anyway, you can go to the search field on Facebook, type in Babel. It's probably going to be the first thing that comes up. But if you'd like to send us an email, you can use the form on our website at trek.fm/contact. Choose to send to a show and select Warp 5. That comes right to us. And you can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. Patrick, when you are not busy discovering that toes can be used as thumbs, where can people find you?
He's a 10! I said a 10! So when I'm not doing that, you can find me on Twitter. It's MagicDrop5. No spaces. 5 is a digit, not letters. You can also find me popping my head up in the Babel Conference more often lately. I have a bit more time than I used to, so I've been interacting with the listeners as much as possible, and I really enjoy that. You can also find me on the Edge with my buddy Amy. We're going to be coming to you every week, that as long as Discovery is in season, and then it goes back to about every other week after that. And soon, March 9th and March 10th, you can find me at Big Apple Comic Con, where I will be hanging out and meeting some people. There's Shatner's going to be there. There's going to be a few others, a few to be announced still that might pertain to the identity crisis. It's not LeVar Burton though, so I don't want to. But it might be someone that has to do with TNG. Either way, so come check me out there and hang out, and we'll talk some Star Trek. So Brandi, when I'm not forcing you awkwardly to eat peaches, where can people find you?
Oh, I never eat peaches awkwardly. I love peaches. Okay, maybe it seems awkward to other people, but you can find me on Twitter at Brandywine12, or you can find my alternate Twitter account, Dark Amy Noserock.
Which I had something to do with without even knowing it.
It's all your fault. It's your fault, and it's Chris Trabuzio's fault. And so you can find me on Twitter under those two things. You can also find me in the Babel Conference from time to time. My work is starting to get busier, so I don't have as much time to look at Facebook outside of, Anyway, and also I do the Live from the Edge with my friend Bruce Gibson on Friday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on our YouTube channel, which is just Trek FM. Come join the chat. Come join in the fun. We get weird up in there, which is how Dark Amy Knows Rock came about. And you can also find me on the Dark Corner podcast with my fabulous husband, Dave, where we talk about stuff and things and do it from sort of a darker perspective, a darker introverted perspective. And there are swears, so don't listen if you're offended by swears. And is that it? Is that it? I think that's it.
You should check your Twitter.
I should check my Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So I've been inspired to start my own new Twitter. You can also check me out there at Magic Drop Nose Rocket. We're gonna be Nose Rocket buddies from now on.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a thing, people. I'm telling you. Get in now while your name still has a Nose Rocket tag.
Oh, you now have me following you.
So, if you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/TrekFM. That's patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. Available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/TrekFM.
And of course, at this time, we would love to thank our associate producers for Warp 5, who are all human. As far as I know, none of their DNA has been rewritten. And those are as follows. Norman C. Lau.
I don't know about that Chris guy.
Oh, wait, you're right. Okay. As far as I know, you know, this is not a fact, but as far as I'm currently aware, they're all human. So Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Oser, Mark Flessa, Chris Trabuzio, and Jim McMahon. Thank you so much for being patrons of Trek FM and specifically for being supportive of Warp 5. We could not do this without you. So,
yes, and remember, DNA alternating sequences are given to you by Nose Rocket.
in other words, stop sticking things up your nose. Or blowing things out of them. Just get rid of your nose. Get rid of your nose, and then you won't have any problems. All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Warp 5, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode, possibly with our missing in action third member. Juicy Danglers.
Who needs a new Twitter handle?
Everybody's going to copy us. And so, in the meantime, go on the Babel Conference, let us know what you think, and as always, keep calm and boom on.